Hi, my name is Leah, and I am a transformed follower of Jesus. I became a Christian just over 3 years ago, but I actually grew up in a Christian home with parents in a small church community of people that genuinely love Jesus. I always wanted to know Jesus, and I remember from a young age opening up my Bible and praying regularly and always wanting to know more of who Jesus was. I knew that I was created for a relationship with God. I knew that God wanted to be my friend. I knew that He wanted to be my Savior, and I knew that He wanted to be my Lord. I was very happy with Him being my friend. I did not want Him to be the Lord of my life. I am a planner, and I have lots of dreams and goals, and in my pride, I often think that I know how to make them happen. And I did not see that I needed Him as my Savior. Growing up for a long time, I played the part of a Christian. I am a people pleaser and I'm a perfectionist, and those two go really well together to help me play the part of a Christian. And people would meet me and they'd be like, wow, she loves Jesus so much. But I may have looked good on the outside, but my heart was dead and I was a slave to my sin, even though I hid from that reality. The sins that I struggled with were pride, selfishness, and living for man's approval. Our culture gives levels to sin. Killing and stealing and abuse are wrong and really bad, but things like pride and selfishness are normalized. And so I bought into that lie, and I didn't really feel like a sinner. I knew in my head that we've all fallen short of the glory of God, but I only knew it in my head and it wasn't my heart. I lived in this tension of having as much of a relationship with God as you can have with all of your sin in the way. And I knew that God wanted all of it, but I wanted to have a relationship with Him on my own terms. I lived this way until I was about 16, and I grew weary of the fight that Jesus had already won on the cross. I grew weary of fighting my sin, even though I would still hide from it and say that I was doing fine. I remember falling asleep at night and just feeling like I hadn't done good enough that day, but tomorrow I would try harder to try and do the works that I needed to do to be a good enough person for God. And I got tired of it. And I remember one day when I was 17, I was sitting at my kitchen island doing homework, and I was thinking, I was like, what is holding me back? What are the lies that I'm believing about God and about myself and about what He wants, so that I'm so scared and I don't want to give it all for Him, because I wanted to know Him. It wasn't working to hold back and not give Him everything. And I remember praying and being like, Lord, I want to be yours, but I am so scared and I don't feel like I can do good enough, because my entire life I haven't been able to do good enough. And I got out a piece of paper and I just started writing down all the things that I was thinking. And I looked at that paper, and in that moment it was like God helped me see myself from His perspective, see myself as a sinner in desperate need of His grace. And I looked at that paper and all the things that I'd written down, and I realized that they were all lies that I was believing about God and about myself and about who I thought He was, and that He was asking me to be perfect, when in reality that's why He sent Jesus, was to free us from our sin so that Jesus could be the perfect one for us. And in that moment I was like, okay, I want to become a Christian. I want to give it all for Jesus. But I was so scared. And that entire day I waited around and just sat with that weight of my sin that I finally did see. And I remember right before I went to bed, my mom came up in my room and she was like, how's it going? And she knew where I was at with God. And I told her everything, and I was like, Mom, I want to become a Christian. I'm just so scared, and I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna give it all for Him if you leave. So can you stay and can you pray with me? And so I remember sitting on my bed that night, and we're both bawling our eyes out. And I just told God, I was like, I'm done fighting. I know I'm a sinner. I know I need your grace, and I want to give it all. I want you to be my Savior, and I want you to be my Lord. And honestly, I can't survive without it. And so after praying that, I felt the most free and just at peace that I felt in my entire life, because I was no longer trying to do the works to be good enough, because Jesus was good enough in my place. Ephesians 2:8-9 says, for by grace you have been saved, through faith, and it is a gift of God, and not by works, so that no one can boast. And that's my story. I tried to do the works to be good enough for God, but that's not what God is asking for. It's through faith and it's through a relationship with Jesus that we are good enough in His sight and can have a relationship with Him. Recognizing my sin was a gift that allowed me to recognize and accept God's grace.